Welcome to the Legacy of Nerd, and today we are doing Ultimate Showdown. Who would win, Jason versus Tommy? Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the Legacy of Nerd. Like I said, today we are going to do an Ultimate Showdown talk. Who would win, Jason versus Tommy? I don't think it's as easy as we may seem to think. I think it becomes more complicated. We'll definitely go through different eras of the Power Rangers between Jason versus Tommy, and we'll get down to the nitty gritty of it. But first, before we start, if you're new here to Legacy of Nerd, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to hit that notification bell. We do a lot of Power Ranger stuff here. We do Power Ranger news for the Lightning Collection, for Cosmic Fury. We've done some interviews with Power Rangers themselves. So we have some fun here. So let's get started. So first, we have Jason, the original Red Ranger, originally chosen by Zordon himself to lead the Power Rangers. He was imbued with the Tyrannosaurus power and would continue on in that role until he left to take the sabbatical and later returned in Zeo. Then, of course, we got Tommy. He was originally debuted as the Green Ranger, selected by Rita to be her evil Green Ranger until he was saved and joined the Power Ranger team, would later to become the White Ranger, Zeal Ranger, and Turbo Ranger, and of course, the Black Dino Thunder Ranger, and would become the legendary Ranger we know him to be at this point. So, who would win between these two? And like I said, we are going to now analyze this at different points, and I think that's the best way to do it. We'll give them a point for each time that somebody is a winner, and we'll see who wins at the end. I actually haven't done the point process yet, so I technically, according to my own rules, I do not know who's going to win. So let's get started. So let's begin. So Green Ranger originally was very powerful in his evil Green Ranger form. Like I said, he was selected by Rita. He was originally given the Sword of Darkness before he was become good and before it was destroyed. But we seem to forget that Jason did beat Tommy to essentially save his soul when he was the evil Green Ranger. And I know a lot of us remember that the evil Green Ranger wiped the floor with the Power Rangers as a team many times. I mean, he yeeted them out of the Megazord. So for Jason to still win during this time, I think it shows at this point he has been growing some battle experience. He's been having some leadership experience. Even though Tommy was much more powerful during this time, he is a winner here. So here we are giving Jason a point, 1 point. So I think during the entire time after that, Jason would beat Tommy up until Green Candle. I think Tommy's powers were significantly reduced after he lost the evil sense of himself. I don't feel the Green Ranger as a good guy was as good, as powerful as he was when he was evil. So even though I think in two different scenarios, Jason would have beat Tommy, we're only going to give Jason 1 point for this because I do believe Jason would beat Tommy as a Green Ranger at his most powerful point when he was the evil Green Ranger. So, Green Ranger loses his powers with the Green Candle when it was distinguished, and the Jason was given the Green Ranger powers. Now, we're not going to really count this as a scenario, but let's just say that during this time, Green Ranger still had his powers, and now Jason had access to his powers in return of the Red Ranger powers. I still believe Jason would beat the Green Ranger, especially more so even if Green Ranger was evil. I do think that powered up Red Ranger or Dragon Shield Red Ranger, however you want to call him at this point, is very, very powerful and probably the most powerful Red Ranger in this mode or form to exist at any point. So I'm not going to give Jason another point for this again, but I want to say that at this point in time, Jason is incredibly powerful, despite having any lack of leadership or battle skills, even though he's starting to gain them. So we move on to the second season, and the middle of the second season, we know that Tommy came back and was had a very light version of his powers. Eventually, his powers were extinguished completely. There was no point at that time, I believe, that Tommy could have beat Jason. Whether it be with his powers, without his powers, whether Jason had powers or not either, I still think Jason would win at this point. But we get to the point where Tommy is now the White Ranger. So Tommy has been given access to the first power created in apparently a long time at that point. I think purposely they made the White Ranger power very, very powerful, more powerful than the other Rangers and more powerful than the Green Ranger ever was, because they were worried about the White Ranger powers ever being manipulated by anybody, like the Power Rangers powers had been to that point, sometimes manipulated completely, especially the Green Ranger himself. So I do think at this point that Tommy is very powerful and more powerful than Jason. But who would win in a fight? Jason has gained leadership skills, at least a year and a half at this point. Tommy has some battleship experience on and off, but he is very powerful and he's still very capable. So I think at this point, I would say that White Ranger Tommy versus Red Ranger Jason is a tie. So I am calling this a draw at this point. We are not giving up. We're giving. Let's give, you know what? Let's give half a point. We'll give half a point to both of them. So we will give 1 point to Jason, and then he gets a half point, so he has 1.5. And then we give Tommy a half a point. So he is losing by a full point at this point. But I do think it would be a draw. I do think the White Ranger powers are very capable. I do think Jason is a very capable fighter. I just think that White Ranger's powers make it much more harder for Jason to win at this point, and that they would just be a complete draw. There wouldn't be a winner. So shortly after Tommy becomes a White Ranger, Jason takes a sabbatical, and we move on. During this time, Tommy, as the White Ranger, is controlling the Tiger Zord. He goes through a major situation where the powers are lost, and he gains the ninja powers, goes on the quest in the movie, or goes on the quest in Ninja by the TV series. However you want to see it, doesn't matter. I think it's the same. It's not the same story wise, but it's the same issues that he had to go through to gain the powers, I guess. You know what? I'm not going to say that at all. I think the Ninja movie was much more difficult than the TV show. So let's forget that. But Tommy, at this point, has gone through more scenarios. He has gone through much more battle experience. I think at this point, he's becoming a better leader and maybe starting to become a better Power Ranger than Jason would have at this point, just because of experience alone. Until we get to the Zeal Ranger, the Zeal powers. Tommy obviously had to go through the command center being destroyed, goes on the quest to the Zeal powers, and now he is Zeal Ranger Red 5. And that is him right here. So let's begin that discussion. So now we are in the Zeal era of Power Rangers. I do have the Jason 2-pack. I just don't feel like taking it down and dealing with it right now. But I do want to note Trey Triforia. This one is the Gold Ranger here, but he is part of the argument as well. So I feel like the Zeal powers are probably the most powerful entity of the Power Rangers to date. Like they described in Soul of the Dragon, and over time the powers have become more powerful. But at this point, this is kind of at the beginning, and that kind of brings it into play as well. So Zeal Ranger Red 5, I do think he's powerful. I think Tommy is more powerful at this point than he was a White Ranger or Green Ranger. Now we get to Trey Triforia. When Trey is introduced as the Gold Ranger and he shows up to the Power Rangers, he wipes the floor with the entire battlefield. Destroys all the minions, all the cogs, destroys the monster. Like, he does it all on his own, and the Power Rangers are like, whoa. So I have to think that the Gold Ranger powers are much more powerful than the other Zeal Ranger powers, especially Zeal Ranger 5, right? Because he had probably been the most powerful up to that point. When Trey Triforia comes in with the Gold Ranger powers, it's just evident that he is top guy here. And Trey Triforia clearly has had these powers a little bit not a little bit longer, probably a lot longer than the other Rangers that had the Zeal powers. Because at that, probably when he introduced, they only had the powers maybe for a couple of months. So I do want to say that Trey Triforia has more experience with the Zeal Gold powers, and obviously is just more powerful than the other Rangers. Obviously, he separated to his 3 forms, and he had to imbue Jason with the Gold Ranger powers. Now, during this time, I still think Jason is very, very powerful, despite not being meant to have the powers. The explanation of that is later on, we find out that basically Jason, being a human, is unable to sustain the Gold Ranger powers, and they had to get it back to Trey quickly, otherwise it was going to destroy Jason. But I still think at this point that Jason is really, really powerful as the Gold Ranger. So who would win between these two? Well, Tommy has a lot more battle experience, a lot more leadership experience. Jason is rusty. but he's had time off. He has had some time to heal to get away from it. Jason or Tommy has been doing this the entire time. He has been Power Rangering up the entire time, not had a break, but Jason has. Now, I think even Jason being rusty, he would probably still be Tommy at this time. Uh, Jason, without being rusty, would definitely beat Tommy during this time. So I would have to say, even though the Gold Ranger powers are not meant for him, I think that still tips the scales. He is that much more powerful than Tommy right now, and he would definitely beat Tommy. I think Jason right here gets the point. So right now he is at 2.5 and Tommy is at 0.5. I have to say, I think those Gold Ranger powers are very epic, and I think that makes all the difference. So moving on. So we're past the Zeo. Jason is no longer the Gold Ranger. Tommy, the Zeo Rangers, they're not using the Zeo powers anymore. We are now in the Turbo era. And here we got Tommy, the Red Turbo Ranger. I think at this point, Tommy is seasoned. He's in his prime. He has all the battle experience. He has all the leadership experience. I think this is just easy for him at this point. But if we do remember, there is a point, especially it's in the Turbo movie, where Jason is given evil power by Malagor, and he's able to go to toe to Tommy in his Power Ranger form. I know he had his helmet off, but he's still rangered up at that point. They're fighting. Jason overpowers Tommy. That tells me that Jason is probably more powerful than Tommy at that point. I know they kind of make it, well, his helmet's off, so his power may not be activated completely, and they kind of did a whole thing. He put the helmet back on. He's rangered up again. I get the sense that Jason was more powerful than Tommy as Red Turbo at that time. But if we cannot forget, Tommy easily beat Jason during that time. Jason was going to throw him in the pit. Tommy just outsmarted him, flipped him over, got him, grabbed him, brought him back over. Then it just messed up Jason for the rest of the movie until he wasn't evil anymore. But Tommy, like I said, this is easy for Tommy. He knows what to do in these scenarios. He knows what he's doing. I think it's important to note that Jason had no control over his power at that time. He was totally being manipulated by Malagor. But I think even if he wasn't being manipulated by Malagor, Tommy still would have beat him, even if Jason still had those evil powers that gave him all the muscles, gave him all the power. I think Tommy is the clear winner here. So now Jason 2.5 and Tommy 1.5. Tommy's making a comeback now. So now we get to Forever Red. We get to the point, Jason has been retired for some time, and Tommy has been retired for some time, but it appears that they have been doing things in the background. Tommy apparently is in league with Andros. Jason makes a comment that he knows some of the Red Rangers, kind of looks at some of the Time Force Rangers when he says that. So we kind of get the sense that they have both been active. And then we find out later on when they just morph, they have access to their Red Ranger powers. Tommy, his Red Zeo Ranger, and Jason, his Red Ranger power. During this time, I do think still Tommy is going to win an Ultimate Showdown during this time. He has gained enough leadership experience, gained enough fighting experience. Jason has been away from it a little bit longer, although I am getting the sense that he necessarily hasn't. But again, I think Tommy has all that experience there that makes him the clear winner in this fight. Like I said, I think the Zeo Ranger 5 red powers grow over time, so he has gotten more powerful. And we get to that point. So we obviously during this time, Dino Thunder comes along, and Tommy becomes the Black Dino Thunder Ranger. I don't have a toy of that right now. I pre-ordered the new Lightning Collection. I'll throw up a still. Here's a still. All right, there's the Black Dino Thunder Ranger with Tommy himself. He is now Dr. O. He has been helping Mercer create these Tyrannodrones, and I don't know why necessarily. They've been experimenting with dinosaur DNA and doing great stuff, apparently, that has never been done before. And ultimately, he returns as a Black Dino Thunder Ranger. I don't get the sense that Black Dino Thunder Ranger is as powerful as any of his previous forms. Maybe in league with Turbo, but definitely not as strong as White, Green, or Zeal Ranger 5 Red. But yeah, he is at this point. Let's say Jason Red Ranger Forever Red active during that time. Tommy Black Dino Thunder Ranger. I think it's another draw. I'm not going to even count this as a point because I don't think there's no necessarily any information that Jason was active during this time. So I don't necessarily know where he would have been at. So right now, I would say it's a draw, but I'm not going to give anyone a point. So we stay at tied for Jason and Tommy with 2.5 points each. Well, now we get to Ninja Steel and Beast Morphers. And even though they're not the same season, I think they're pretty close together, and I think we need to discuss it. Tommy comes back in Ninja Steel, and they are fighting some weird form of Lord Draken that's not the same. I think it's Lord Draven. I have to look at it. But he is there, and he appears to have complete access to all his powers with the Master Morpher. So now he has access to Green, White, Zeal Ranger 5 Red. He has all of them. Black Dino Thunder. I'm assuming he has Turbo. They don't show Turbo, but I'm pretty sure he has access to Turbo. And then, yeah, it's just easy for him at this point. It appears he's been active. He's been, if he has a Master Morpher, he's been doing something to get that Master Morpher and trying to save the other Rangers. I think he's just going to be a Ranger forever at this point. So he now has a Master Morpher, has access to all his powers. Then we get to Beast Morphers. And Devin finds the power coin in that little morphing grid thing. And out comes Jason, and he gives Jason the power coin. So that tells me that Jason didn't necessarily have access to his Tyrannosaurus powers right now because Devin had to give him the power coin. I think Jason is kind of surprised to be there, but of course he is very ready to help. He does help. He helps them beat Neo Goldar. He has access now to his Tyrannosaurus. He has obviously gained a lot more experience, a lot more battle experience, a lot more leadership experience during this time. But he hasn't really been leading so much so, but he's definitely been in scenarios. So who would win? Master Morpher Tommy or re-energized Red Ranger? And of course, I would have to say it is Master Morpher Tommy. I think at this point he is legendary, and there is no beating Tommy. He is ultimate power. Even when we get to Soul of the Dragon, which I'm not going to count, but he apparently he's unstoppable. He is a force to be reckoned with at this point. There's nothing that he can't handle. I think Tommy does win here in the ultimate showdown of Jason versus Tommy at the very end. Jason has some wins along the way, but Tommy is just too much of a legendary ranger, too many forms, too powerful for Jason to ever make up for that. So I guess that's the end of the video here. I want to know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with Jason? Is Jason the ultimate winner showdown, or is it Tommy? Do you think you agree with me? It's Tommy. What are your thoughts about some of those along the way? Did I miss any points? Is there any points that you like to add to it? Maybe we'll do a part 2 and reevaluate it, depending on how well this video does and how many reactions I get to it. But I have to say at the end here, Tommy wins all the way. Oh yeah, before I end the video, go watch the interview with Andros and watch to the very end. There might be something important that you want to see there. So please go watch it. Watch to the very end. You won't be disappointed. I think that's it, guys. So let me know what you guys think in the video. Remember to hit that subscribe button, to hit that notification bell. We do a lot of great stuff here. We do some Power Ranger stuff. We do Power Ranger interviews, news. We have live streams. We like to do a lot of fun stuff here. So until next time, y'all have a great one.